Hi, I'm Judith Dreyer. Thank you for joining me for this podcast series, The Holistic Nature of Us. My intent is to take us, you and I, into a better understanding of the concepts behind our holistic nature and how that ties directly to the holistic nature of the world around us. How can we connect the dots in practical ways that we are nature and nature is in us? I will be featuring authors and educators, practitioners and others whose passion for this earth helps us create bridges. We'll see what's trending, what's relevant to our world today, not just for land use, but to connect the dots between ourselves and nature. It's time for practical action and profound inner change so our natural world is valued once again. And today I'm delighted to introduce you again to Deb Sodergren. Deb has been a guest on this podcast series, and I invited her to come back because the holidays are up and coming, and it can be a stressful time. So just to review for one moment here, Deb is an energy body vibration expert, an international speaker and author, and she's the owner of Up Vibrations LLC. She graduated from the New England School of Metaphysics in 1998, and she is nationally certified as a Reiki Master Teacher. She's also certified to teach metaphysics and meditation. She is also an Infinite Possibilities certified trainer. Welcome, Deb. It's great to have you back.
Thank you. It's so good to be back with you, Judith.
Wonderful. Let's start with this time. Let's start with your book, Just Be, to give our listeners a little bit of an overview of your work.
Oh, sure. So I wrote a book years and years and years ago. I just had it published in 2016. I had this download of this information from all the different trainings I've done that's, basically helped me get through living my authentic, amazing life and without the stress of everything that I was connected into. So when I had that mastered, I had this download to write this book. So I wrote this book, and I put it actually together like in a manual, and I tried it out on people, different women in different groups that I was in with, my kids, associated with my kids. Everything was about my kids at that time of my life. And we would get together in my home when I put the kids to bed, and I would start sharing this information with them. And eventually, it got to the point where they were like, you really need to, this stuff really works. The way you put it together makes sense. They had been exposed to the ideas at some point, to some of the ideas, not all of them. But the way I put it together in a curriculum made it so that they were able to actually get results from it. And to me, that was gold. Like, that's what it was all about. I just wanted to be of service to help other, at the time, women that were stressed out, to be able to get some stability in their life where they felt like they not only were handling everything, but they were handling it and being present in the moment and were enjoying it. That was a big difference.
I bet. And you had a practical experience, practical one-on-one, and so you could see the results to validate how you presented your book, correct?
Yes, absolutely. Yep, they were my beta testers.
Right. And what I love about your book is that you actually have a companion journal that goes with it, which is, to me, very practical, because if you're working on something, you've got the companion right there, and you can keep track of your notes. And in my training, I was taught to perhaps once a month, once a week, whatever feels right for you, to go back and review it, because we do forget the insights that we gather in and the practical actions that perhaps we've taken, and it gives us a chance to see how far we've come. So I highly recommend the book and the companion journal.
Thank you. It's interesting because the journal piece of it, I was actually meditating at one point about my book and just, looking for some divine guidance about, okay, so this book's going to get published and I'm not in control of how it's going to be received. So I was releasing that piece of it. And in my meditation, I had this very strong, it wasn't like a voice like you and I were using the vibration of our voice box to have the information come through, but it was more of like an internal voice where it said, they need to write it down, the importance of writing it down. And then I had this conversation in my head with my ego going, oh, well, I don't even like to write things down. So I hate writing everything down. I think it's like all this like chatter started going on. And finally, something even deeper, it felt like Sybil for a moment. It was like, okay, breathe, really breathe, deep breathe. So I was doing my deep breathing, and I'm in this meditative state, and I'm having these inner conversations, and I actually felt like I dropped into my heart, and it came out like, it's important to write it down so you can make space for the new thoughts that need to come through.
Oh,
and I thought, oh, that's it. That's what they need the journal for. Oh, now I know the importance of it.
That's wonderful. I know my teachers have told me that when we write things down, we unite the right and the left brain. And that's another value to writing things down.
Yeah, it's there are many different ways to say it, and the way that you get it is the way you were supposed to get it. So that's why there's so many different teachers out there teaching what seems like the same content, but we're not the teacher for everybody. So when we finally receive it, we get it and we have that aha moment. I can't tell you how many times I've said something to my kids only to have them go out into the world, and then they come back into the home and they're like, oh my God, this is what I heard today. And they tell it to me. And in my head, I'm thinking, are you kidding me? I've said that to you. Like, but I don't. I just kind of, I keep that to myself, and I stay in my heart, and I say, wow, that's awesome. I'm so happy you got that message.
We can all relate to that. Those of us that are parents, yes, absolutely. If it doesn't come from mom, it has more meaning sometimes. That's funny.
This is true.
That's funny. All right, so let's get into the end of the year, the holidays, the new year. I know you have some great things to share with us. So let's begin with the holidays. It can be stressful. It's a party time. It's also a time where we probably overeat and overdrink, so we feel sluggish. It tends to be a time where we can open the door to colds and flus and that kind of a thing. So I'm excited to hear about your ideas and how we can stay centered and focused and balanced and have a great time.
Okay, great. Well, for me, it actually starts in September. In September, I do a lot of inner work. For me, that's the start of the new year, where it's the academic calendar. The kids are either going off to college or back to their new school year. So for me, as an entrepreneur, what works really good for me is to realize, okay, I need to really do some inner stuff because the holidays are coming. I have, in October, it's a very busy month for me. We have my husband and I, it's our anniversary on the 28th. We have one of our child's birthdays on the 26th, another child's birthday on the 30th. And then, of course, Halloween is on the 31st. So that's kind of like my big kickoff. So what I do in the process of leaning up to that is the weather's amazing. So I be very mindful about getting out and getting at least 30 minutes of a walk in. A walk through the woods is very grounding for me. The ground is still warm enough where you can take off your shoes, you can put your feet on the grass, you can hug a tree, you can smell the smells of the changing in the air. As we move further into the month of September, into the beginning of October, the leaves start changing colors. Taking that in, being very mindful, taking a moment to just be in the splendor of nature, looking at the leaves changing, being very mindful of that, being mindful about, wow, okay, so we're changing into fall. You can smell the leaves. You can smell the dirt. You can take in the harvest of, if you're a gardener, of all those root vegetables coming in. There's staying within the season helps me to stay grounded. When I'm grounded, I stay in my heart, and rather than have a reaction to something in my head, I end up staying in my heart and I have a response to something. So I'm a little slower in responding in a way that is very heart-centered, very mindful. And as I work through my way that way, where I am now, going into the holiday of Thanksgiving, I am writing down in my journal things that I'm thankful for at the end of my day. I have a little notebook by my nightstand. And these are things, guys, that everybody can use right now. Keep a little notebook by your nightstand. At the end of your day, before you turn out the light, just write on one of the pages, I am grateful / thankful for. And it could be something really simple like, I got to my appointment on time, or I actually felt the sun shine on my face. Be thankful for those really small things, because having gratitude for something, when you connect with it, it expands the energy around it. It comes from your heart, and that will draw more of that good stuff to you. And a good example of this is there's been times, I'm sure, for even the listeners, when you've been around somebody and you hear them sneezing or coughing and you're like, oh dear God, don't let me get sick. And don't you know, you put so much emphasis on getting sick that the universe didn't understand the word not. And guess what? You attracted it to you, and you are going to become what you brought to you. So be very mindful of where you're putting your energy and what you're thinking about, because what you think about, you bring about. I'm really a proponent about that. So if you get out in nature, you will ground yourself, you'll be more centered, you'll feel more peaceful, you'll feel like you are one with this earth, that you are actually every day just in the moment, a little bit more and more of being present here, and you will start shifting so that you are attracting more of that to you, those things that light you up and come easy to you, the laughter and the joyfulness.
Oh, those are great tips right there. I like the gratitude journal at night. I know I have children and family members that do that routinely, and they walk a path of gratefulness. They seem to give off that energy of being grateful naturally, just because of that discipline that they've gotten themselves into. So anything else? What else would you recommend?
Another thing to do is, even for Thanksgiving, is have little note cards by everybody's place setting. And then as people come in the door, just have them go find their place setting and pick up that piece of paper and have them write down something on that piece of paper that they're grateful for. Mm-hmm. And then during the dinner, you can share, and it brings up conversation, and it really helps us to get into the moment of being present of what we're grateful for. And the people that are struggling, like, oh, I couldn't think of anything I was grateful for, it kind of brings it to a point where they start thinking about what somebody else wrote, and then it triggers something for them. And by being connected in that energy, it's just love-filled. It comes from the heart. It's such an amazing, easy tool to use for the holidays, so that the conversations don't go amok, because we all know, as we gather for the holidays, whatever it is that we celebrate, we come together with people that we love, and sometimes we have differences of opinions and differences of tolerances. And so if we can do our part and just set the intention at the beginning of the day before we get together, if you know you're having a family gathering and you're going to go someplace and be with friends, set your intention on how you see that playing out for you. If you know that you recently had an altercation with somebody and they're going to be at the party, just kind of stop in the moment in the morning and just say, okay, so later on today, I see myself going to this event. I see myself interacting with this person. I see us smiling at each other. I see us warmly hugging each other, and keeping the conversation light and full of love. And we walk away happy. And wow, this or so much more. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And then it's really simple to set that intention for the day. And later on in the evening, be very joyful and be very playful with the idea of, wow, I wonder if it'll really happen that way. And be open to being surprised of the wonderment of how it could really go that easy for you. Yeah.
No, I agree. I've had personal experience with that too, setting the intention for something that was difficult. And I think love, truly getting into our heart space, is really the answer, because love can melt anything. It can move a mountain. It can melt steel walls. It can melt a broken heart, We just have to
Yeah.
have enough faith that it'll work. Whether it works in that moment or not is fine, but what you just shared, I know to be true. I know that it can happen that way. That simply can happen.
Yeah, and one thing that I work with, I've taught this in a lot of different areas. I've taught it at retreats, I've taught it in classes, I've taught it from the stage in a room of hundreds of people. And one of the tools that I like to share with somebody, and they're like, well, that's all said and great and done, but if somebody's coming at me about something, how do I not absorb that negative energy? How do I not tap into being riled up by them? And one of the things I like to share, and this is a tool that you can practice and you can actually just be like, oh, I wonder if this really works. And, try to remember it as you're with somebody. If somebody's saying something to you and they're trying to get you riled up or they're trying to get you, and you really want to stay in your heart center and you're really like, oh man, I don't want to go here with this conversation. Instead of looking at them straight on in your body postures, that they are standing in a way that you're facing them. And it's good to give them eye contact. It's good to smile. But instead of being plugged in from your belly to their belly, just very ever so gently keep looking at them with your head so your eyes are at them, but just shift your body either to the right or to the left. Just kind of lean into one of your hips and shift your body so that your solar plexus, where your emotions are, is not being plugged in. And just play with this idea. I promise you, this is a tool that people are amazed when they start using it. They're like, oh my God, that really worked. I didn't get quote unquote plugged in. I didn't get drawn into the drama. I didn't get drawn into the conversation. It's just kind of like the person was able to say what they needed to say, and I could just smile, and then we could move on and go our separate ways without anything escalating or becoming anything that we didn't want it to become. It's a great tool. It's easy. Play with it, and I really highly suggest using it.
I agree. I totally agree with you. It also works with children. Teenagers can be full of energy, full of emotion. And my first introduction to that technique was dealing with a teenager. And I learned how to shift my body so that the intense emotion, whatever they were going through, and it was often valid, didn't come and directly impact me, so that it prevented me from just reacting. It gave me a space, that brief space, to perhaps listen. And I think that's a great tool.
Thanks. Yeah. And the thing about that too is we are spiritual beings having this human experience. And one example of how we've already been using our intuition, but we just haven't called it that, is when with teenagers, when you're having a conversation with them and they don't want to hear what you have to say or they don't want to feel what you have to say, they automatically fold their arms, and it's covering their solar plexus where their emotion center is. So they're already protecting themselves from feeling something that they don't want to feel. So it's really cool how we are intuitive on already using some of these tools, and the whole idea of just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not there. And we all know that just with, radio waves or the microwaves in a microwave. So I'm just having the listeners, as they're listening to this conversation, just open your mind to the possibility of it being, it could be better, and it's all our choices, and we can choose to look at it as, oh, it's a crappy day, it's a little bit cloudy right now, or we can go, well, the sun's out most of the day. There's a couple passing clouds, so that's giving me a little relief from the blazing sun, but it's still a good day. It's just our choice of how we look at it. So I'm just going to ask our listeners to look at things in a way of being this, this intuition is something that you already have.
Yes, and listening to it, when we stay grounded and more in the moment, I think it's a lot easier for us to hear that intuitive voice that we all have, and those are great reminders.
Yeah, our society's done a great thing on having us being very intellectual, where we easily have a reaction to something, but instead of having a reaction to something, if we actually take a moment, and take that breath. Give yourself permission to take a breath for a moment. And what that does is it brings the focus down into your heart, so that instead of having that reaction, you actually have a response. So instead of like when somebody says something and it's going to, make you angry, take a moment and just let it, like, instead of just spouting something out, just make sure that it comes from your heart and you're actually going to say something that's going to be a little more meaningful and a little more easy to hear.
Right. And holiday times brings family together, and families can have some friction, can have some irritation. We don't get along with everybody in our family. We're kind of forced to be with our family in some respects, if I may use that word. But our friends are our choice, is what I'm getting at. And I think Dr. Wayne Dyer said something like, friends are God's way of gifting us because he gave us our family. He says it something like that. I know I didn't say it very well, but it's something along that line. And I just love that because it's true. You're born into a family, you got to deal with it, and we have our lessons and learning from them. And then the holidays come. And how smooth that is will depend on the quality of our relationships within that tribe, so to speak. So these are very good helpful hints, reminders, easy things to do, and I thank you. They're wonderful.
You're welcome.
Let's go into what I'd like to do is summarize all of this because you gave us some quick points. So if we want to start with the grounding, with the nature, if you could summarize what you just said, I'd appreciate it because I think that'll make it very valuable because you have that piece in there about the solar plexus. So let's see if we can give a nice outline before we end.
Yeah, grounding just keeps us so that we have a response to something rather than a reaction. So grounding is really beneficial to the body. When we are grounding, we are exchanging ions. We're moving the chemicals in our body. We know that our body is this big petri dish of chemicals. It's a molecular structure that's vibrating at a certain frequency in order to keep it in the form of our body. So grounding us helps us to stay centered in a way that keeps us present in the moment. Whether it's going outside, if you can't get outside, as we go through the winter months, sometimes it's not as easy to get outside. A way to bring nature inside is to have a plant in your space. It provides oxygen for you and it takes in some carbon dioxide. Another thing a tool that I use and I share with my clients are oils, essential oils. I love doTERRA essential oils because they are a therapeutic grade oil, meaning when I use them, I can either take them in my mouth, I can eat them, or I can put them on my skin, or I can use them in a diffuser. And I do have a diffuser going in my home, and I use different oils. If I know the holidays are coming and a lot of family's going to be here, I'll use a specific blend to try to keep everybody calm and happy and in that way. And the way I explain that to people, people are like, well, what do you mean? How does an essential oil, change your mood? Well, I'm sure if you've been in nature, if you like the pine needle smell, you smell it in, and you're just like, oh, I love that smell. It's changing your emotion. It's having this chemical reaction in you that's helping you to calm down and stay present. Or in the summer when you bend over and you smell a rose, there's nothing like the fresh smell of a rose. And the rose just happens to carry the highest frequency of a vibration in order to keep you in alignment with being calm and being in your heart center. So that's how essential oils for me work inside when I can't get out into nature and I want to have those kinds of support in my home. I use a diffuser in my bathroom and I use this blend in it that helps to disinfect it. So as different people are using my restroom, I have this diffuser going, and not only does it smell good, but what they don't know is as the mist falls and hits things, it's actually like 99.9% germ free. So it's actually doing this dual thing for me.
Oh, that's great. I'd like to interject one comment here when you talked about getting out in nature, grounding, when we can, based on the weather. Jean Shinoda Bolen has a great book out there called Like a Tree. And she reminds me that the trees actually breathe too, which we know they do. They give off oxygen and they take in carbon dioxide. So when we go out for a walk, isn't it interesting and isn't it a mindful practice to actually imagine that we're feeling the breath of the trees? And there's something very soothing and calming about that. And to have that awareness on top of it just, I think, deepens the experience.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I thought I just said that too about, the tree and the plant. And the other thing that is interesting to know is science now can actually, they all have science about this, but the trees are interconnected. So through their root system, they're actually working together in this grid where they're exchanging energy of sugars. If one tree feels weak, other trees around it will send sugars through the root system to help support it. If one tree is dying, it gives off all of its energy and sends it to the root structure and supports all the other living trees around it to give them the energy for their support. So I just love the fact of knowing that how that system is going on and how we are cohabitating with it. It truly is all connected.
Yes, it is. And then that leads us into energy, doesn't it? We're all connected. All right, so we've got grounding, we've got being out in nature, we've got setting our intention, we've got a gratitude journal. Those are all wonderful and they're great tips. So let's give everyone your contact information.
Oh, sure. If I can just give one more tool real quick.
Sure.
As they go into the new year, one thing I like to do, and I make it a fun workshop, I have women at my home and we do it together in a group, is do a vision board. A vision board is a wonderful, fun tool where you go through magazines and you cut out inspirational things you want to bring into your life, whether you want to be on the air or you want to eat cleaner so that you can get more exercise and be happier and be more intuitive, be more spiritual. Whatever the words are or the pictures, you cut them out and you put them on like a poster board, or I use cardstock, 8.5 by 11, and then you keep it in a place where you'll always see it. And every time you look at it, it reminds you of where you want to go and what you're going to try to attract to yourself. And it's really cool on how this stuff really works.
It does, and you can really bring in that which you're dreaming by doing these kinds of tools. Also, just an FYI for the listeners is it's a subconscious thing too. When we put it up on our wall, it could be in our office, it could be in a place that where we want to affirm that board, but even if we don't consciously do it, subconsciously when we pass it by, we're getting the same reinforcement to ourselves and we're sending out the same reinforcement to the universe. So I really like that idea. I do that myself and I love it.
Oh, good. I even tell people take a picture of your vision board and then have it on your phone.
Yes.
So you can have it with you wherever you are.
Yes. Very good. All right. Anything else?
Those are the tools I wanted to offer. Those are a lot of tools. I don't want to overwhelm anybody, but just pick them and work with them, and there's no wrong way to do it.
Right. All right. So what we're going to do today, I'm going to end a little differently. Deb has a great quote. So the first thing we're going to do is each of us will give the contact information, and then Deb is going to end with a wonderful quote for all of you. All right. So your contact information is?
You can reach me at my website, which is www.upvibrations.com. And I have a lot of great free stuff on the website. And you can have access to all that information. You can send me an email. There's a link there to contact me. And I'm also on social media. Just go into Facebook on Up Vibrations or Deb at Just Be on Twitter. I'm on Instagram. I'm out there.
Good. And her book is called Just Be, and there's also a companion journal that goes with that.
Yes, and that's available on Amazon.
Wonderful. All right, so what I'd like to do is just say thank you again to Deb for her wonderful tips, her practical advice, and I'm really grateful for the timing of this podcast, because my intention is to give the listeners some great tools, and Deb is a great resource on that level. So this is Judith Dreyer. I'm the author of At the Garden's Gate book and blog. My book is available through my website, which is www.judithdreyer.com, as well as several distribution arms such as Amazon, Nook, Goodreads, and more. I'd like to remind all of you that a transcript is available for each podcast. Please like and share the podcast so we can support each other. Let's get the word out. And remember, now is the time for practical action and profound interchange, so we value our world again.
All right, and I would like to leave you with this saying that it's kind of like my declaration. I believe we are here to thrive, not just survive. I believe everyone deserves a happy life, living out their dreams and having abundance. I believe there is enough for everyone. I believe everything is made up of energy and we are connected to all that is.
Thank you. Thank you again. So this is Judith Dreyer saying goodbye and enjoy your day.